I'm 77 now, and people still ask me the same question like they're poking at an old bruise. Don't you want someone, Ted? Aren't you lonely? Don't you miss having a woman in your life? They say it gently, but it lands heavy, because the truth is, I did try. And what I learned didn't feel like romance. It felt more like a quiet heartbreak that stretched over months instead of minutes. 10 years ago, when I was 67, I let someone step into the empty chair across from me. Everyone around me acted like it was a victory. They told me I deserved happiness, said love doesn't care about wrinkles or gray hair, said a man should never stop searching for a warm hand to hold. It sounded beautiful. It sounded right. But here's the truth no one tells an old man. Sometimes the hand you hold becomes a weight you can't put down. And sometimes the loneliest place in the world is right beside someone who doesn't understand your silence. My wife Helen died when I was 61. A stroke, sudden, quiet, cruel. One moment she was in the garden, brushing dirt off her gloves, talking about the roses. The next moment, she was gone, just like that. No warning, no long goodbye. Just an empty space where her voice used to live. The house didn't change, but the feeling inside it did. Every room felt colder, every chair felt heavier. Saturdays hurt the most. That used to be our day. We'd work in the yard, shoulder to shoulder, passing tools back and forth. Then we'd sit outside with lunch and talk about nothing important. Just small, soft conversations that made life feel warm. After she left this world, Saturdays turned into long corridors of silence. No footsteps, no laughter, just me and the ticking clock. But time has a strange mercy to it. It doesn't heal you all at once, it just teaches you how to breathe again. I found a rhythm, not a joyful one, but a steady one. I started going to the hardware store just to hear human voices, joined a model train club at the senior center, learned how to cook more than eggs and pasta. Little by little, the loneliness softened. The silence stopped feeling like an enemy. It became a companion. Then my son started worrying. One evening at dinner, he looked at me and said, "Dad, you should meet someone." "I'm okay," I told him. He shook his head. "You're alone all the time. That's not healthy." "Alone isn't the same as lonely," I said. But he didn't believe me, and neither did my friends. One night at the VFW, Tom put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You're too young to give up, Ted." Too young? At 67. After a while, their voices started living in my head. I began to wonder if maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was hiding. Maybe I was afraid. So I signed up for a dating site. It took me a week to figure out how to upload a photo. Another week to write a profile that didn't sound like a used car advertisement. But I did it. And when the messages started coming in, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Wanted. Seen. Remembered. That's how I met Karen. She was 63. A widow. Kind eyes, soft laugh. We messaged for a while and then started talking on the phone. She laughed at my old jokes, asked about my trains, listened like my stories still mattered. After 2 months, we met at a diner near her place. Nothing fancy, just coffee, sandwiches, and sunlight coming through the windows. She talked about her grandchildren, her book club, the quiet years after her husband passed. Driving home that day, I felt a small spark inside my chest. Maybe this could work. Maybe the world wasn't finished with me yet. For the first few months, things felt gentle. We'd go to dinner once or twice a week, watch afternoon movies, take slow walks in the park. It felt normal, familiar. almost like I had borrowed a piece of my old life back. But love at this age doesn't break loudly. It breaks quietly, in small moments no one else sees. She started calling in the mornings, then at lunch, then before bed. At first, I thought it was sweet. That's what couples do. They check in, they stay close. But after a while, the calls felt different. If I didn't answer, she'd call again, then text, "Where are you? I was worried. Why didn't you pick up?" And suddenly I felt this heavy knot in my chest, like I had betrayed someone just by spending an hour with my friends. Then the weekends changed. Every Saturday she wanted plans, visit her daughter, go shopping, try a new restaurant. If I said I wanted a quiet day at home, she'd look at me like I had broken a promise.
"Don't you want to see me?" she'd ask. "I thought we were together now." So I started saying yes, even when my heart whispered no, because what kind of man disappoints someone who just wants his time? Here's the part that stings. When you're an old man and you find a girlfriend, people treat it like a miracle, like you should be grateful every second. So when you feel tired, when you want space, when all you want is one silent Saturday, you start to feel guilty for it. About 6 months in, I noticed something that scared me. Every time her name showed up on my phone, my shoulders tightened. Not with joy, not with excitement, with dread. One night she called at 10:30. I was already in bed, half asleep. I stared at the phone for a moment. Part of me didn't want to answer, but then I thought, what if she needs me? So I picked up. Nothing was wrong. She just wanted to talk about her day, her daughter, a doctor's appointment she was nervous about. We stayed on the phone for more than an hour. When I hung up, it was past midnight. I sat there in the dark, feeling strangely hollow. Not because of the late hour, because something inside me felt worn down. The next morning, Tom called. "Want to go fishing Saturday? Weather's supposed to be perfect." I wanted to say yes. Fishing with Tom is peaceful. We barely talk. Just sit there, lines in the water, letting the world drift by. But I knew if I went, Karen would want to come, and if she came, it wouldn't be quiet anymore. So I told him I couldn't make it. That night, sitting alone in my living room, I realized something that felt like a slow heartbreak. I wasn't losing a relationship, I was losing myself. And that kind of pain, it doesn't shout. It just quietly takes pieces of you until you don't recognize the man in the mirror anymore. That night, the house felt different. Not empty, not silent, just crowded with thoughts that wouldn't sit still. I looked around the living room at the same old couch, same coffee table, the same pictures on the wall. Helen smiling in that frame by the lamp, the kids when they were small, birthday cakes, fishing trips, Christmas mornings. Everything in that room carried a memory, and for the first time in years, I felt like a guest inside my own life. Let me talk about the money for a minute, because love at this age doesn't just cost emotions, it costs real things too. At 67, I was living on Social Security and a small pension. It wasn't a rich life, but it was steady, peaceful, predictable. Then Karen came along. Dinner out every week, $50, $60, sometimes more. Gas for the drives, birthday gifts for her grandchildren I had never met. Little things that added up like quiet leaks in a boat. Then one day she said, "We should take a trip to Branson. It'll be fun." $300 for the hotel, another $100 or more for meals, tickets, souvenirs, little extras. I didn't say no. How could I? But at night, I'd lie in bed doing numbers in my head, watching my savings shrink like a candle burning too fast. And it wasn't just the money, it was my energy. At 67, I wasn't the man I used to be. I'd wake up around 6, make my coffee, spend the morning in the garage with my trains. By 3 in the afternoon, my body was asking for rest. But Karen didn't live in that rhythm. She'd want dinner at 6, then a stop at her daughter's place, maybe dessert somewhere. We wouldn't get back until 9 or 10. By then, I felt completely drained, like someone had wrung the day out of me. I'm just not as young as I used to be, I'd say. She'd look at me like I was making excuses. My friend's husband is 70. He goes dancing twice a week.
I never told her the truth, that I didn't want to dance. I didn't want busy nights and crowded rooms. All I wanted was peace, a quiet chair, a slow morning, a life that didn't demand more than I could give. The breaking point came around 8 months in. We were sitting in her kitchen one evening. She looked at me, very calm, very certain, and said, "I think we should live together." I still remember the way my hand froze halfway to my mouth, holding a bottle of beer. Live together. Those 2 words felt heavier than anything I'd heard in years. That night, I sat in my living room, my house, the house where Helen and I raised our children, where birthdays were celebrated, where arguments were forgotten, where love had lived quietly for decades. And I imagined someone else's routine inside those walls. Someone else deciding when the lights went out, when dinner was served, when the TV was on, when the silence ended. I imagined losing the one thing I still had, my space, my rhythm, my peace. And for the first time since Helen died, I felt panic, real cold panic. The next week, I ended things. We were sitting across from each other, and the words came out of my mouth before I could soften them. "I can't do this anymore." She stared at me, eyes filling with tears. "What did I do wrong?" she asked. That question crushed me, because she hadn't done anything wrong. She just wanted closeness. She wanted a partner. She wanted what most people call love. But I told her the truth anyway. "I thought I was ready to share my life again," I said. "But I'm not, and it wouldn't be fair to pretend." She cried, then she got angry, and I sat there feeling like the worst man alive. For weeks after that, the guilt followed me like a shadow. My son was disappointed. My friends didn't understand. "Why would you leave a good woman?" they asked. I didn't have the right words back then. All I had was a feeling, a quiet voice inside me that said, "This isn't your path." Then something strange started to happen. One morning I woke up and my first thought was simple. What do I want to do today? Not what she wanted, not what anyone expected, just me. So I called Tom and went fishing again. I returned to my train club. I spent quiet evenings at home with the radio playing softly in the background. And something surprising happened. I wasn't lonely. No, I was peaceful. That's when I understood something that took me 77 years to learn. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely. When I was with Karen, I was never alone. But I felt lonely because I couldn't be myself. That kind of loneliness is deeper. It's colder. It's the feeling of sitting beside someone and still feeling invisible. It's been 10 years since I walked away from that relationship. I haven't dated since, and I won't, because I finally understand the truth. I didn't get a girlfriend because I was lonely. I got one because I was afraid of what people would think, afraid of silence. That fear pushed me into something that slowly drained the life out of me. Now my mornings are simple. I wake up at 6, make my coffee exactly how I like it, spend time in the garage or at the lake or doing absolutely nothing at all. And the best part is, I don't have to explain myself to anyone. My son stopped pushing me after a while. One day he looked at me and said, "Dad, you seem happier now." He was right. Not because I found the perfect woman, but because I found peace. Listen, I'm not saying relationships are bad. Love can still be beautiful at any age. But if you're 70 or 75 or 80 and you're thinking about finding someone just because you're scared of being alone, stop for a moment. Ask yourself what you're really afraid of. Because being alone doesn't always mean you're lonely. And being in a relationship doesn't always mean you're not. I have a friend, Ed, 79, been with his girlfriend for 6 years. He once told me, "I can't remember the last full day I had to myself. But what am I supposed to do, start over at 79? That's not love. That's fear wearing a warm smile. At this age, peace isn't a luxury, it's survival. My body can't handle constant emotional strain anymore, so I chose quiet over chaos. Do I feel lonely sometimes? Of course. The holidays can sting, certain songs can bring tears to your eyes, but those moments pass, and they're nothing compared to the loneliness I felt when I was with someone and still felt alone. If you're in a relationship that drains you, you're allowed to leave, even at 70, even at 80. And if you're alone and people keep telling you to find someone, you're allowed to say no. At 77, I learned something simple but powerful. Your own company can be enough. You don't need another person to prove your life has value. You just need peace with the man in the mirror. And once you find that peace, you'll realize it's the most precious thing you have. So no, I don't have a girlfriend, and no, I'm not looking for one. Not because I'm bitter, but because I finally learned how to live with myself and not feel empty. You get one life, one final stretch of years. Don't spend them trying to make someone else happy while you slowly fade away. Don't trade your peace for companionship that comes wrapped in chaos. I'm 77. I live alone, and I'm happier than I've been in years. That isn't sadness. That's wisdom.